So this is the C3YoyoDesign Edolass. This is Ryuichi Nakamura's signature yo-yo, and if you guys don't know him, he's known for being a really speedy and fast player. He's always been in some of the top spots in the competitive scene, and in general, he's a really awesome player. I'll put a link to his Instagram down in the description below if you guys want to check him out. But back to the yo-yo. It has a bimetal construction, it has a plain and angular design, it has a very wide gap, and that's something I find really interesting about this design. It comes with a standard KonKave bearing, but I don't necessarily fancy KonKave bearings, so I put a center track in there. The finish is really nice and smooth, and it's a really nice looking yo-yo. A really pleasant design, nothing too extreme, but overall, it's quite a premium yo-yo. Now for the specs. We're gonna be comparing this throw to two yo-yos, the C3 Crown and another yo-yo that I don't currently own, the YoyoRewind Drop Near. Looking at the two now, you can see that they're quite similar. Starting from the shape of the yo-yo, they look pretty much identical. From the polished and angled walls right next to the gap, all the way up to the edge of the rims. Since the Edolass is a bimetal, the rims are different compared to the Crown, being slightly more angular and straight, therefore giving the yo-yo a bit of a sharper feel. And moving on to the cup, the two yo-yos don't exactly look the same, but I will say that they are quite parallel in terms of general design. Now the other yo-yo that I can definitely compare the Edolass to is the Drop Near. I don't own a Drop Near as of right now, but if you take a look at the two, they do look very similar to each other. From the shape, to the rims, to the cup, the Edolass is pretty much an updated Drop Near. The only main differences I can find between the Edolass and the Drop Near is that the Edolass is significantly wider and has a wider gap width. And for the cup, they also look very similar. But the Edolass has rims that are flatter on the sides, and the center of the cup is more subtle than the Drop Near. Alright, let's go. So how does this thing play? So I've had this throw for about 2 months now, and my impression on this thing hasn't really changed very much. My impression on this thing was that it was gonna be powerful, because that's what I normally expect for yo-yos with this kind of construction. It's either gonna be really light, really powerful, or somewhere in between. And this throw fits into the more powerful aspect. The Edolass pretty much carries everything you need for a competitive throw, being powerful, wide, and fairly easy to maneuver. After a while though, I noticed something about the Edolass. Yo-yos that are focused on the competitive design sometimes lack the fun aspect. And that's similar to what I've been feeling with the Edolass. Yeah, it does perform really well, and this would no doubt be a great yo-yo to compete with. However, there's not much uniqueness about the feel of this yo-yo. Now, don't get me wrong, the yo-yo itself performs pretty great, although it's just not as fun as some of my other bimetals. It feels somewhat meh in terms of how fun it is. But with all that being said, what about its characteristics? For binds, the Edolass gets a solid 10. This throw is very slippery, even though I use a thicker and longer string than most other players. The Edolass uses the C3 Violet JP pads, and these pads are really grippy and are excellent for binds. But despite that, it still manages to be slippy. Like, what? This is probably because of the wide gap width, standing at 4.75mm. That's pretty wide, wider than most throws in the market right now, but this design is actually relatively smart. You see, powerful yo-yos like the Drop Near, Hummingbird, etc. tend to have a stronger and a tighter bind most of the time. And unintentionally, this could sometimes cause a lot of snags if you're not careful enough. But C3 comprehended that issue and gave this powerful yo-yo a wider gap. That simple change in design made this yo-yo much less prone to snags and almost eliminates that issue entirely. Even though the binds on this are quite slippery, when done correctly, binds are pretty good. Like I said in my previous review, slippy binds can easily be fixed by simply giving more slack to the yo-yo when doing a bind. So overall, binds are actually pretty great. When it comes to regens, this thing feels a bit weird. You can execute them on this throw no sweat, but it tends to be really vibey when you regen it. I suspect that it's mostly because of the angular shape, but right now, I'm gonna give it a 6 for regens. It just doesn't feel that great despite adjusting my regen multiple times, but it can still do those regen tricks. Since it has a wide gap width, it has no problem letting go of the string, so it won't ricochet on you when attempting those risky regens, so a 6 seems like an accurate rating for the Edolass's regens. For comfort, this throw gets a 7. The yo-yo feels comfortable, however, it's not the best when it returns to your hand, mostly because of its shape. It has an angular look to it, and the rims are somewhat rounded out to make things a bit more comfy. But how the yo-yo lands on your hand is what makes the yo-yo a bit weird to grip onto. Even though the yo-yo doesn't have any sharp edges, the yo-yo still feels a bit sharp for some reason. Although, this yo-yo does have a fairly generic shape, so the 7 feels just right for rating this throw. For the finish of the yo-yo, this gets a solid 10 for me. It's just extremely smooth. I can definitely give some solid recognition to C3 for how well they anodized their yo-yos, and needless to say, they did a tremendous job with the finish of the Edolass. Definitely an S tier when it comes to the finish of the Edolass. In terms of grinds, the shape of the yo-yo is like the only spot you can actually grind on. Plus the rims if you're wearing gloves, as well as the talon grind in the rims of the yo-yo for good measure. But for the cup of the yo-yo, not exactly good. I'm not a big fan of this engraving. It just feels terrible for finger spins. Now for smoothness, the yo-yo gets a solid 10 out of 10. This thing is dead smooth, one of the smoothest I've had. But after a while, the bearing did get dry, and so I replaced the bearing with the center track while the KonKave bearing was getting cleaned, and the Edolass got back to being dead smooth. Plus I don't really like KonKave bearings. You barely feel the yo-yo spinning at the end of the string, and I find that to be really cool. It just shows how quality and premium this throw really is. The yo-yo's design also incorporated the polished walls right next to the pads where the string makes contact with the yo-yo, and that's a pretty neat feature to add to the yo-yo, and definitely makes the play of this yo-yo much smoother. Catchability gets a 9 for me. In terms of catchability, this throw has a 44mm width, so it's in the normal or average width for yo-yos these days. I'd say that yo-yos that have widths under 45mm are considered normal, and anything under 43mm is considered narrow. In my opinion at least. But given the shape of the yo-yo, it does look fairly wide, and the same goes with catching it. The shape of this yo-yo is simple yet very competition worthy and makes catching this yo-yo not too difficult. So with all that being said, I'd give the catchability on this yo-yo a good 9. It's not too wide that you'll catch multiple strings at once, but precise enough to catch a string you're targeting. Slacks, whips, and hooks are fairly easy to execute on this one. When it comes to power, this yo-yo brings it out just right. It's not overly powerful, but it's just enough power to do most of your tricks. So this yo-yo gets an 8 for me. Most of my tricks I can easily execute with the Edolass, but it does lose a bit of that power when the string is hitting the body of the yo-yo too much, which is a bit of a problem when it comes to tech or compact string formations and mounts. The yo-yo has a lot of contact points between the string and the yo-yo itself, so that leads to the yo-yo losing a good amount of that spin. A decent way to compensate for this issue is to make sure the string isn't making too much contact with the yo-yo, and you'll be just fine. Nonetheless, the power on this yo-yo is just right and pretty well balanced, complementary to its weight and speed. For momentum, this thing gets an 8. Because the yo-yo does pack a bit of power to it, it takes a bit more effort to move this thing around, and it's a bit reluctant when the yo-yo isn't moving that much. I'd say this yo-yo has a lot of inertia. So when you do get the yo-yo up to speed, it's not that difficult to move, bounce, or redirect the yo-yo. So I'd say the momentum on this yo-yo stands fairly well and deserves that 8. When it comes to speed, the shape actually makes this yo-yo very aerodynamic, and has no problem with moving swiftly across the string. With that being said, the Edolass gets a 9 for speed. Ryuichi is a fast player, so it makes sense that his yo-yo is somewhat reluctant to move. If the yo-yo is too fast, it could make the throw uncontrollable and move unintentionally. So the Edolass gives a good balance between speed and power. For stability, the Edolass gets a 7 for me. I'm not the biggest fan of this yo-yo's stability very much. The shape is fairly simple and angular, however, it also makes a lot of contact points and surface area that the string slides against, like I said earlier, which makes the yo-yo lose some of its spin and power, and the less spin the yo-yo has, the weaker its stability is. So yeah, if you don't keep the string away from the sides, it's not gonna stay in its axis for too long. But other than that, the Edolass can power through all of your tricks with just a little bit more effort. Horizontal is actually pretty good with this yo-yo. Ryuichi does a lot of off-axis tricks, so it makes sense that the Edolass can handle most of your horizontal tricks without any problems. Since it does carry quite a lot of power, the yo-yo can easily manage to do your horizontal tricks fairly easily. In spite of what I said in the stability aspect of the video, it's not that bad for horizontal. This yo-yo gets a 9 out of 10 for horizontal. So in conclusion, the Edolass is one beast of a bimetal. It feels powerful, it feels fast, and even though it does take a bit of adjusting and effort to put the yo-yo to its maximum capabilities, it can do whatever a good bimetal can. Is it worth the price? I'll say that's up to who's buying. If you can spend well over $100 for a good bimetal, then go for it. You won't regret it. But if you are looking for a budget bimetal or something good but not too expensive, this yo-yo isn't for you. In my personal opinion, it's definitely worth buying if you have enough money to purchase one. This throw is a very competition-worthy yo-yo, however, in the competitive scene, you do need a minimum of 2 of these ready. So that's almost $300 for 2 yo-yos. I'd say it's not the best option for competition money-wise, but if you want to buy one for yourself, feel free to get one from YoyoExpert. I'll be sure to put links in the description down below, so be on the lookout for these on the next restock. And with that being said, that's all from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found the information you need if you want to purchase one. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, and if you guys want to see more content like this and possibly other yo-yo related videos, be sure to click that subscribe button and click that bell icon to stay updated for any future videos coming out soon. If you guys have any questions, leave it down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.